Hello, everyone. My name is Brandon Wood. Welcome inside the neighborhood. Today's guest, I have a good friend, Anthony Jansen. Welcome inside the neighborhood. Today we'll be talking about Anthony's story, his upbringing, his life, what he's experienced, and where he's at today. We have a little bit of history together. We spent some pretty intimate time together, and just getting to know each other through being around the game of basketball. So look forward to this conversation. Look forward to him sharing and getting to know him a little more. Welcome in, Tony.
Thank you.
How you doing?
Real well.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
This is my first podcast, by the way.
That's great. I mentioned before, I'm glad I was a part of one of your first.
Yeah. Thank you.
I know I asked you a little bit ago, how often do you get to do something for the first time? So
That's right. Yeah.
it's good to be a part of one of your first.
Yeah.
Just maybe we can get started by you just introducing yourself, maybe just sharing who you are, where you're from, and we'll kind of just see where the conversation takes us.
Okay. Yeah, my full name is William Anthony Jansen, and I was born in 1940. That'll give you an idea of where I'm coming from as history evolved. And I had 5 children and divorced after 42 years. And don't ask me why. Just
I might end up asking you.
But I had a lot of fun with the kids, raising them. But there were some times when I wasn't present raising them, when I was into the alcohol, gambling, and I regret those times, but I learned from those times. And took me a long time to get on the other side of the coin, but with a lot of struggles and going inward, a lot of personal work, it finally happened. And I still have times, when it's not exactly there. But, yeah.
I'll definitely, there's a few things I want to pick through and go through what you just shared, but maybe let's just start 1940, 1950s, us few that are here, we weren't even thought of. My parents weren't even thought of, so kind of just share with us what it was like in the 40s and 50s and 60s, just in those early years.
Yeah, my dad had a 1935 Plymouth, I think it was. They made him, I'm pretty sure it looked kind of like a Model A. And I remember when I was a kid, he was taking a nap on a Saturday afternoon. He liked his beer. And he was taking a nap on Saturday afternoon. I remember getting in that car, and the wheel was turned in it, but I found the starter. I just put my foot on that starter, and the car, being in gear, the car moved, and I ran it up on the sidewalk, or half of it up on the over the curb and up on the sidewalk, and
up to no good.
And then I totally fretted, like, how am I going to get this off, And one of the neighbors right next door came over and helped me, showed me how to, or helped get it up back where it belonged.
Yes.
And just different incidences like that. I remember when the war was over, and I was on my tricycle out on the front sidewalk, and I'd never seen my mother cry, but she came out the front door and she was weeping, just hysterically weeping. And I thought, what's wrong? And then finally I heard her keep saying, "The war is over. The war is over." And that was emotional.
Couldn't imagine.
I think it was sentimental and emotional because it's something that happened almost like it happened yesterday. And so when I think about it, and the fact that I'd never heard her cry before, I thought, oh man, this has to be pretty serious.
Yeah, I mean, just
to know that the war is over.
Yeah, that memory, I can understand just the emotional attachment to that memory, seeing your mom cry for the first time, not really knowing what's going on, being that young.
Right.
And just wanting to know what's going on. Is she okay?
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine how you felt, but that's...
and we were raised Catholic. Catholics had a certain idea about having kids with the rhythm method, different methods like that, which as I got older, I realized that for me, it took away my freedom of even thinking sexually about life, about sex. And
what was that? What specifically are you speaking of?
Specifically, I was taught by the priest that if I masturbated and didn't get to confession and died, I'd go straight to hell, whatever hell is. And that was when I was probably 10 years old, something like that. And I grew up as an introvert, so I was real bashful, and I'd get embarrassed easy. And so that affected me a lot as I thought back on being taught that and believing it.
Mm.
But I also realized that I didn't really believe it. I didn't truly believe it, but I was taught that I had to believe it.
Mm.
And so that really plays your mind.
Confusing.
Yeah, confusing.
Yeah, I can imagine. Maybe share a little bit about your parents and what they did, and just maybe like the household that you were raised in, and just kind of maybe those dynamics.
Yeah. My dad was he originally climbed telephone poles, worked on the lines, and then he got tired of that, so he went to work at Starlight. Haynes Starlight is called Cabot now, Cabot Corporation. Or I think that's the name of it, Cabot. And he worked there 40-some years, and he was a cost accountant. And he would come, we'd pick him up almost every evening. And back then, we only had one vehicle, and I had seven. There were 7 kids in the family, and I was the third one down. And there were 3 girls, 4 boys, and so we'd pick them up and go say the rosary, the Catholic rosary, and we had the idea that if we said the rosary every day, then Russia would be converted to Catholicism, to Catholic, those kind of ideas. So one time I thought I was tired of doing that, so it was my turn to say there's 5 decades in the rosary, and it's my turn to say one of them, and I just kept silent. I didn't say, and my dad said, "Your turn." I said, "I'm not saying it." He said, "Yes, you are." So that ended up being a little confrontation.
Maybe real quick, just for me personally, actually the family that I live with now is Catholic, and I see them doing their rituals with their rosaries, and I'm not really familiar exactly what they're doing. Could you share that for me and maybe for anyone else who may be curious?
The rosary was just, you know what rote means? Prayers by rote, R-O-T-E. This simply means you say a prayer and you say it over and over and over and over again.
Like a mantra?
Yeah. So the rosary was beads, and there was 5 decades on it. 5, 10 beads to each little section. And so then you'd say prayers with those beads to keep track of where you were on it. And I think they still offer the rosary, like someone dies and a priest or somebody will go to the funeral home and say the rosary.
Okay. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
I was curious about that. I've been wondering, just to familiarize myself with, just what they're doing, just wanted to get to know everyone in a way.
Right.
All right, maybe, so after early childhood, getting to school, anything, you got something else to share?
Yeah. When I was 5, my younger brother was 3. And all of a sudden I was just facing the front windows of the house, and he ran past. There were 2 windows in the front. He ran past, and he was totally on fire, his whole body.
Wow.
closing up. And so he ran to the front door, and I started screaming, "Mom, Mom, Pat's on fire, Pat's on fire." And she come running in and ran to the front door, and all I remember is I was watching her strip his clothes off. And he didn't know enough to row. He was only 3 years old. But then he ended up in the hospital. Well, he almost died a couple of times. They called my parents and said, "You better get out of here. We don't think he's going to make it." So he made it, but he was in the hospital for 6 months out of St. James, or St. Vincent's is called now. And he was in there for 6 months before he could get out. And then he had a big web under his arm, and he had to have that cut out. But I didn't realize how much of an effect, because I just blanked out after that. I was 5 years old. I didn't know what the heck's going on.
You're talking about in the moment?
In the moment. And I didn't really black out, but I took myself out of what happened. And I realized as I got over that he was my buddy. He was my partner or playmate, because he was 3, I was 5, and the others were over and younger. And so I was probably just in a state of whatever.
So that takes me back to a point in my childhood. You said you were kind of out of the moment. You know, you kind of were able to like separate yourself from what was going on currently. I'm curious, was that like the first time you sensed that you were able to like go within yourself and like kind of block out what's going on?
Yeah. And so from that point on, I've thought about that a lot. From that point on, some of the teachings that I received, I had a hard time taking in and believing. But I didn't. I was so introverted that I couldn't do anything about it at that time. I just went ahead and, well, this is the way it is, move it.
I kind of relate that to my experience. I come from a household where my parents definitely love each other, but they always kind of were going back and forth, whether it's like verbally or physically, and just kind of carrying on around the household. So I kind of come from that experience. So when you mentioned like that was a time when you sensed you were able to like, you were kind of there, but you kind of mentally weren't there.
Right.
I remember times when I was younger when my parents would be going back and forth, and I'd hear it kind of like secondarily, but whatever it was, I could sense like, let me just go within myself.
Yeah.
And I really like it wasn't really like a focus. It was just like, let me just remain where I'm at within myself and kind of block out the noise.
Yeah.
So I kind of relate that to now later on in my experience, being able to take great steps with my emotional development based on that foundation that I had that I wasn't even aware of at that young age. So it's kind of like, it's special to see how those moments, like kind of how we're built at that time in those moments, kind of naively, and then like later on, it's like, oh, I can reflect back and realize like I've been able to tap into this stillness for a long time.
Yeah.
Is that similar?
Yep.
Yeah.
And you knew that you knew. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I knew that I knew.
I knew something was going on that shouldn't be going on, but you're right. I really can't control nothing right now. Let me just stay and continue where I'm at.
Yeah, that's right. And then the next, then in the 8th grade, I remember in the 8th grade, the nun came into the room, and all my classmates were in the room, and I had decided whether or not I wanted to become a priest. And at the very end, I thought, I don't really want to become a priest. I don't think I'd make a good priest, whatever they do. And so I decided to sign up for Copeland High School. Well, the nun came in the room and said, well, class, I understand Tony's letting us down. He's decided to go to the high school instead of the seminary. So right away, I thought I was doing something really bad. I was letting that whole group of people down. You know, how can you do that?
But it's like, what's wrong in whose eyes, though?
Yeah, right.
If it's something that you felt that you want to do, it's like.
And so I remember getting beat red because I was embarrassed that I wasn't performing. And I remember my neck and my face and head just getting probably 160 degrees. Can it get that hot? But it was hot. I mean, it was like I was totally embarrassed. And I said, no, I can change my mind. I can still go to the seminary if I want to. And you know what? I ended up going to the seminary. But just because of the introversion or whatever. So when I got to the seminary, I was only 14 years old and left home, went up to Lake Wawasee. There was a seminary up there. And I was there they had 4 years of high school and 2 years of college. So I stayed there for 4 years of high school and 1 year of college. And then I couldn't stand it anymore. I wrote my mom and dad a letter, told them I was out of there. And it's amazing because that letter felt like it weighed about 50 pounds on my way to the mailbox. And once I dropped it in there, it was like, wow.
Weight off your shoulders.
Yeah, totally out.
Was you think that was like, was it making a decision to leave or just expressing yourself on that paper? Which one was it? Was it a combination of both?
It was a combination of both. And come to think of it,
because the letter hadn't even got to your mom yet, and you already sensed the relief.
Yeah.
So that just shows you the importance of sharing and expressing yourself, whether it's writing or speaking or.
That's right. Yeah. And also the importance of once my mind was made up, boom, that's it. No one's gonna. You're a bad boyfriend. You know.
How was that? How was it like mentally and emotionally? Like once you made a decision to not go to become a priest, and then you kind of got influenced to go back into it. Was that something that you had to like? Was there any like regret or any like anything you had to kind of?
Never a regret. In fact, many times while I was in the seminary, I'd do things because I was angry. There's a hidden anger. And I did things out of anger, and then I get in trouble. And I think subconsciously I was hoping I'd get kicked out.
Kind of like rebelling.
I was rebelling. So I know one time, we weren't allowed to leave the property. And I know a guy from Kokomo, he went to seminary too, but he was only there 2 years. And he and I would go golfing all the time. That was the only time we could get off the premises, and the golf course was right across the road. And we'd golf every chance we had just to get out of the place. And then I'd come home, and when I'd go back, it just felt like prison, really. And so I remember one year, I think I was a sophomore in high school, and there was only one barber there. And I had more hair on my head than I do now. But I went to him and I said, I'm going to get a mohawk haircut. And he said, you cannot do that here. I said, I have the money, and you're my barber. You're the only barber here, so I mohawk. And he said, I'm telling you, it went last. And so I got the mohawk, and then my wing was upstairs, one flight of stairs. And the mohawk lasted 12 minutes, I think, 10 to 12 minutes.
Somebody
There's a priest up there, the prefect, the rector, they call him. I still remember to this day, he said, what's that? Pointing to my head, you know. I looked him right in the eye, and I said, that's called a mohawk. Like that. Get back downstairs and get that thing cut off right now. So I went back. I went back and got it cut off, and then another instance was in the dining room. We were all eating, and the tables were on wooden tables, and I thought I could play shuffleboard with a glass, empty water glass, but it was a glass, not plastic. So we would always stick a pile of dishes up at the end of the table so it'd be easier to pick them up. But there was still an opening at the end. They had now gotten their plates down and what. And I slowed mine down, trying to put a little shuffleboard, and it went off the end, splattered on the floor. And my punishment was kneeling in the refectory in the dining room where everybody else ate, kneeling on hard tile floor, kneeling there all during the meal. And then after they all left, then I got to go in and eat.
So just taking it out on your knees.
Yeah. So it was like another rebelling moment, you know.
So you left home for high school, and you were what, like a few hours away?
Yeah, it was a few hours away.
How was that like back in those times, like leaving home and like with the communication back to home? Like, how was that?
It's just you had to write letters, and I was really negative. My letter was I started out with I'll probably get a D in this because I'm not da-da-da-da-da. I make excuses, you know. And I did get pretty poor grades because I didn't want to study. I just didn't want to be there.
Didn't want to be there.
I didn't like books, didn't like reading books or any of that. And so that led to, you know, the end of the sophomore year. Well, then when I got out of school, my dad's main goal was to get everybody through college. And he had a 12th grade education. And back then, college was a lot cheaper to go, but they didn't have all the scholarships like they do now. But he got us all through college, and he was real proud of that.
Nice. And what'd you study in college?
Well, I wanted to take accounting. He decided that I shouldn't take accounting because he was an accountant and blah, blah, blah. So he said I should take economics, and I thought, economics, what's that? So I took economics and got C's and D's, and maybe when I was in college, I think I got 1A, and that was in logic. So, you know, like all cows are black, there's a cow, but he's not black. So it was like I really ate that logic up. I got O's in it, and then everybody come around, hey, Jansen, can I borrow your notes? We're having a test. Can I borrow your notes? So-and-so has them. As soon as he's done, you can have them. But for some reason, I really liked how logic operated. I mean, it was a no-brainer, you know. But you had to have a true premise to make everything else fall in line as being true. So,
what do you mean, the true premise?
A true premise, like all cows aren't black. So the very first part of the logical conclusion had to start with a truth and not a fiction in order for the truth to end up at the bottom, so to speak.
I'm sure that's tough for the world full of a whole bunch of truths.
Yeah.
So where did you go to college at? Where were you at?
St. Joe in Rensselaer.
Oh, okay. So was you
just closed now?
Really?
Yeah.
I was in the area though.
Have you heard of it? Yeah, they played Ball State. I think that's the biggest school that played in football.
Okay.
But I'd go in town as much as I could and drink alcohol.
Once you finished college, where was the next step after that?
I got a job at Internal Revenue, collecting back taxes. And when I went in for the interview in Indianapolis, I was about half drunk and needed a shave. I didn't care if I got the job or not. It was the first job I saw. I'll try that, you know. And it might have been, maybe it was because I wanted to feel important or something. Because I got this badge, you know, and carried that badge, like WWII. And so I was still drinking pretty heavily and stuff, but the fellow that interviewed me said, "What would you do if someone told you they weren't going to pay their taxes?" And I said, "I'd go after him." And that's all that dude wanted to hear. I'd go after him. And so he says, well, hang on a minute. And he says, where do you want to work? I said, well, probably around Indianapolis, somewhere like that. And he came back and he said, well, we only have one opening, which I didn't believe. But he said, we only have one opening, that's in Gary, Indiana. I said, I don't really want to work in Gary, Indiana, but I will. I didn't know that much about Gary. I just knew it was a corrupt city, and there was a lot of gambling, prostitution, and I thought, what am I getting myself into here, you know? But I went to Gary, and then I didn't stay there long. I put in for a transfer back, and then I worked in Kokomo the rest of the time. So then I got the 7-year itch. In the 7-year itch, I quit the IRS.
After 7 years?
After 7 years, yeah. And my dad helped me buy a little trailer court up by Martino's up on North Washington. And I didn't really do this intentionally, but I had that for 7 years and dumped it. And then, so then I had this one Indian guy that was kind of a guru, and he talked about the revolution of life. And life has like 7-year cycles in it. And usually we get 10 of them, which would be 70 years old. And anything past that's kind of like gravy, you know, kind of a gift. But so I started noticing that 7-year cycle was really interesting because I'd watch people preparing tax returns too. I'd watch Social Security numbers, and I realized that this is off course, but I realized
There's no course.
You just ran. But I started realizing that almost every male that married a female was always 2 to 3 years over. And I thought, that's strange, you know, how that works. And then I realized also, I found out that women mature much quicker than men. But I could never figure out. I always thought, I started thinking that the man thought he had to be on top, so he would date a younger girl because he was up here. Because suddenly I realized that our generation and our country, and even other countries, did not respect females. They had all the babies and stuff, but they went through torture having those kids. But they didn't get, a lot of them never got out of the house. And they didn't really, the man had to be in charge. And that really affected me in a big way.
You said it affected you?
Yeah.
That affected me too.
It taught me how to turn that coin around.
Take your time. No, this takes your time too. So
it was a big thing emotionally to learn how to love women and respect them like a person, you know. And it was quite emotional. It was a long journey, but I really played a game when I was preparing tax returns by Social Security numbers and stuff like that. And well, I'd see them, they'd both come in, and the lady would just sit there, because they probably told her she needed to be there too. And she'd just sit there all quiet and curled up in a way. And then in other cases in later years, she would be in charge in these later years.
Yeah, she would.
Like women's lib and stuff like that.
She will. But, so let's backtrack a little bit. I know you mentioned just some of your things that you've had to experience and deal with throughout your journey as far as like addiction. So I'm familiar with that as far as substance abuse and how it's affected my family. So I'm curious, just where did that start for you? You know, like what age did maybe you had your first drink, and then like kind of how was that journey for you?
I drank when just to feel good, and then it was all fun and games, you know. My dad was giving us beer when we were 5 years old, and it was all fun and games. But then at times, I know one time we'd been drinking, and I could never buy a car, but I could use his car, borrow the car, they called it. We borrowed the car. Whoever spoke up first got to use the car. And we had to be home by midnight, so 3 other guys and I went to Schaefer Lake, and there's a playground up there, up rides, amusement park. And I remember one of the guys we were drinking, and he got in a fight with some other guys, and so we got in the car and we were chasing him down this gravel road, and I couldn't even see. I couldn't see any car. All I knew was they must be in front of me because there's a cloud of gravel. And I don't know how fast we were going, but we were moving. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the car became airborne and came down in this field. And it was a T road, but you couldn't see it because of all the dust. And after everything settled down, I looked over here. We were about a foot from a great big fence post with a corner post on a fence, the concrete. And on this side, there's a ravine right outside the door and a big telephone pole right beside the car. We went right in between those and looked. I thought, wow, it's not time to go yet. But I had 3 other guys with me, too. And when some farmer finally came down, he saw the commotion, he got the tractor and pulled us out with a chain, and it actually kinked the frame of the car. So on the way home, I had to drive in second gear real slow to get home. And I thought, man, I'm going to really catch it. And my dad looked at it and said, don't worry about it. It's okay. I was going to trade that car anyway. I go, woo! But it was a game, It was a game, whatever. So,
what about the gambling? When did you begin that? How did that?
The gambling kind of took over the drinking. I was feeling pretty good about not drinking. At least not. Oh, another thing I started going to AA, and I went to AA for a number of times, and when I stood in there and have to say, my name's Tony and I'm an alcoholic, later on as I advanced, I thought, no, I'm not going to AA anymore. I don't want to continue to call myself an alcoholic because I'm not an alcoholic now. And so I quit going to the meetings, and that worked out fine. And then I started gambling, and the way the gambling worked was...
Real quick, before you continue, about like how you stopped going to the meetings, like you reached a point to where you felt like you didn't necessarily need the meetings anymore?
Yeah.
Correct?
Yes.
Do you think that's a point that individuals that are in AA and NA, is that a point that they should all kind of envision? Or is it something that they should kind of probably just depends on the person and their strength, like, or something that they should use the rest of their life as much as they can or just as they need to? Like, is there a point to where you can kind of like heal out of?
Yes, my point is that that's to go through those 12 steps is good.
Do you think people get caught up in AA and NA and stay within it?
Yeah,
keep them labels and instead of like breaking through and flourishing, is that a thing?
And the thing that I noticed also was they had coffee pots there, and I'd see guys going up and getting 3 and 4 cups of coffee in an hour, and I'm thinking, is that an addiction? It could be. And
you could kind of say the same about smoke breaks.
Yeah,
just going out and smoking. It's like I get my mom all the time. It's like, you're doing your thing as far as like not drinking alcohol, but you're still addicted to cigarettes.
Yeah. So actually, the alcohol and the gambling were kind of intermixed because I know the reason being my brother would come up and visit, and he'd come up and we'd get drunk together. And one time he said, hey, I'll give you a check for $25,000. You can trade on the market because you're a better trader than I am. And the way this gambling started was that I bought 2 or 3 orange juice contracts on the commodity market.
Mm-hmm.
And I sold one of them because they were going against me. The price was coming down. I bought the price to go up. And it was like October. And another fellow come in that knew me in the commando office because I'd get glued in there it was like an obsession.
Uh-huh.
And he came in, he said, I said something about, he said, how you doing? I said, no, bro, well, my orange juice going down. I said, I'm thinking of just getting out of it. And he said, yeah, but this is October, November. And he said, now's when you should be in it if you're banking on a freeze in Florida. I said, yeah, you're right. So lo and behold, we had a freeze in Florida that winter.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a couple of contracts. So on an investment of like $1,800, I made $12,500 in 1 week.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, this is it, man. This is it.
Mm-hmm.
And the broker even told me, he said, Jansen, this doesn't happen every day or every week, so you better take care of that money. And I said, yeah. What's he know, you know? And so I still remember going out and getting a big leather chair, easy chair, and buying a book on commodities. And I thought, this is where I'm going to make my living. Wrong. Right. And
what exactly are commodity? What'd you say? Commodities? Commodities. What are those?
It's like you can buy corn, beans, gold, silver, orange juice, coffee beans. You can buy all these, that they call them a commodity. Okay, yeah. You can buy these commodities on a market, and then that market, some of them trade all night. So if you have a position on, you can go to bed and think you're sleeping. But there were nights when I'd only sleep about an hour because I'd be worrying about, when I was losing.
So what gambling was on the market?
Yeah.
Not necessarily like sports gambling or like shooting dice.
No. Mm-hmm. Shooting dice, when you're done, you're done. Betting on a game, when you're done, you're done. You're still gambling. But in the commodity market, you're in a state of confusion the whole time. Because as long as you have a contract open, it's going like this, up and down. Mm-hmm. And you don't know where it's going to stop. It only stops when you get out of it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it was that to me was worse on my health. Did more damage than the alcohol.
The gambling.
Yeah, because when you're drunk, people can tell you're drunk. You know, you're stumbling along, or you're slurring your words, or you're not making sense. But when you're gambling, you always hear about everybody's wins, never about their losses. I'd talk to people, oh man, did I tell you last week I made $1,000? Really? Mm-hmm. How about the week before? Well, they didn't want to talk about the losses. They wanted to be a winner. Mm-hmm. That's what I finally figured out. I want to be a winner. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so after I almost had all the utilities shut off and everything, and then I was sealing driveways too, and on my own because the kids would be at school. Mm-hmm. I remember having 2 or 3 driveways to seal, and I was still at the commodity market at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I left at 8 or 9, and I was still at the commodity market at 3 or 4 in the afternoon. Those driveways still didn't get sealed. Mm-hmm. So moving on, what really changed, like a light came in, was I had a good big bill, but I weighed about 190. And I had a full-length mirror. And when I got up out of bed, I looked in that full-length mirror, and I was about half drunk or hungover, you know. Mm-hmm. I thought, oh, my God. I thought, what a sight. What a sorry sight. And that
recognize yourself.
Yeah, because I actually looked at the whole body. I can even remember spinning around as much as I could.
Just making sure.
And see, so I could see the sides and the back.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, when I looked in that mirror, it was like, when I think back about it, it's like a huge transformation came about. A huge light came on. And at that point, I started on a health journey, I went to a fasting center and fasted for 21 days on water.
Mm-hmm.
And I have arthritis in my knees and elbows. And when I was in my low 50s, working on the asphalt, and I thought, this ain't right. I don't think the body was designed to feel this way at this age. And so I'm not real good on dates, so I don't remember the date. I mean, how old I was. But I remember when I did that first 21-day fast, both knees and both elbows cleared up gradually, and there was no more pain whatsoever. And I remember, because the place I went to, you had to do a 21-day fast, and then you could work there for 3 months as an intern, helping out. And I remember this girl that was there, and she was from Oregon. She is a druggie. And she was there trying to get off the drugs and stuff. And she was on this 21-day fast. And she came up to me one day, and I was experienced in it by then. She came up to me one day, and she said, look at these. And her skin was actually just breaking out in blisters like sores, back here and up here. And I started smiling. She said, it's not funny. She got ticked off. She said, it's not funny. And I said, I'm not laughing or smiling at the fact that you got those sores. I'm just smiling because I'm happy for you. I said, just go through the fast all the way. Don't give up. And I said, at the end of it, you'll see what you'll see. Well, at the end of the fast, all those lesions were healed totally up, and there were no scars on her body. No scars because of the natural healing. Yep.
No, that's important. A couple more things I want to talk about, and then maybe just open it up a little bit. So I want to talk about the impact, because you shared a little bit with me a couple of years ago when we went to that high school game. Just the impact that your son Mark has had on your life. Just maybe share a little bit about Mark. I know you shared, if you're comfortable, about like some of your childhood dynamics in your home.
Yeah.
So if you're comfortable, maybe share that.
You won't get mad at me.
Not at all. Not at all. This is making a difference.
When in the 7th or 8th grade, and my parents never spoke about color, spoke out about color, but the living conditions and everything, you could kind of tell that we were separated by color. And we had a maid. My mom had a maid because she had 7 kids in 11 years or 12 years. And so she needed a maid. So really, Mary Fort was our maid. And one day we'd walk home from St. Patrick's, and we lived over by the old Crescent Dairy, where there's another place over there that's a startup home or something. You know where I mean?
Yep.
On Jefferson, right there near.
I forget the name, but I know where you're talking about. Yeah.
There used to be a Crescent Dairy there, sold made and sold canned milk. They would can the milk or bottle it and then sell it, like Meadow Bloom Dairy. And anyway, we walked home for lunch. My brother and I were together, my older brother. What if he watches this podcast?
He might.
Anyway, he walked in the door. We walked in the door together, and Willie May used some kind of furniture polish that I don't know what it was, but had an odor to it. And he walked in the door and he said, I smell a nigger. I just got this snot in my stomach. I got this knot in my stomach, and I thought, how could he say that? How could he say that? And he just said it nonchalant, like it was normal. And she said, what'd that boy say? What'd that boy say? And my mom said, oh, no, everything's okay. When no, she said, no, it's not okay. And so that had a deep impact on me about color. And then as life went on, I was mentioning to you, Mark, because I'd go to Recovery Center once in a while, or see Mark. Mark would go there out and play ball, and he'd go up to a different colored person like yourself or like any one of us, and he'd put his arms around them. He'd put his arms around him and hug him like there wasn't any difference. And I'd stand back and think, how can he do that? Really, that was my thought. How can he do that? But I kept watching him do it. And I thought it isn't how he can do it, he just does it. There's no how to it. You have to change your heart.
Yeah, it's just a feel.
You have to change your heart to love. Love isn't like a thermometer. You don't have this much love or that much love. Either you have love or you don't. Love is a total word. You can't have, well, I love you today, but not tomorrow.
98% of love ain't good enough.
No, love's love. And anyway, that's what I experienced. When he'd do that,
Tough.
Yeah, I'd think, oh my gosh. And Mark was uneducated. He didn't go to school. I mean, by uneducated, he was educated, probably more than a lot of educated. But people, just a short note, I remember going to open houses after high school, and people would say to me, where's Mark going to school? And I said, I don't think he's going to school anywhere. What? They'd be real disappointed. Well, our son's going to Purdue. Our son's going to IU. And I said, good. I hope he does real well there. And so through the years, then, Mark and I worked together, just the two of us, for a long time. And I'd tell him, I'd say, you really don't need school. You just need to be willing to work and find something you like to do. Because he'd ask me later on, how did you decide to do asphalt in Texas? I said, well, I wanted to be warm in winter and go out in the sun in summer. So it worked out real well. But he taught me non-verbally something that was one of the most important things in my life. And then I was always talking to him about what's going on outside with the chemtrails, with the spraying of the chemicals in the sky, aluminum, barium, whatever else they're spraying. And one day I was outside the window at the tax office, and I stand there looking up, and I said, Mark, he's getting tired of hearing me. Mark, there they go again. They're spraying those chemtrails. And he cranked his window open a little farther, and he said, hey, you better be careful. He said, you're got that head cocked back. He's cocking back any further, and he might fall on the curb and break your neck. And
pretty much showing that he's not worried about them.
I'm yeah. He said, "This, what is."
Exactly.
So I can still remember walking around the tax office inside, and thanked him for teaching me to get off in that moment. Thanked him for teaching me to get
detached from him.
Detached from him, exactly. And so one other little phrase he has, just a one-liner, is whatever is. And I said, boy, that makes so much sense, whatever is, because I was trying to straighten everything out. I was trying to figure out a way to stop those chemtrails. How can we do it? Get 2 or 3 guys and go after them? You know what I mean? And so he's taught me a lot. And he probably doesn't even know how significant it is. But each time I learned something from him, I told him. And see, another thing is, he'd always call me Dad this, Dad that. And that word dad or father, he didn't call me father, but dad, that particular word always made me feel like I was up here and he was down here when we were working together. And so one day I stopped in the middle of the driveway and said, Mark, from now on, you can call me Tony or you can call me whatever you want, but you don't need to call me Dad. I want to be your partner. I want to be even, Steven, equal. And when we're working all the time, really. And so he started calling me T-Love. And I like that better than Tony.
Yeah, I remember when I first met you, when you were walking to the truck, he said when he gets in here, call him Big Tony. And I remember you open the door, I said, "What up, Big Tony?" Yes, that's my guy, Mark. He's a great guy.
Yeah. So it was interesting because a tax client came in, an older lady, and her husband came in one day, and she had a tax question, and Mark said, I'll have to ask Tony what the answer is. And Tony, who's your dad? And she got fired up and stood up and ran, and all she was on. I fired up about it, and he said, no, we got a deal going. He said I can call him anything I want. I don't have to call him Dad. So that was a cool thing. And so the very next day, the way I learned that, I don't know if you knew Dale Hogan in the day, but he worked out at Chrysler, and Brian Hogan played for Florida and played the National. Dale Hogan, we were doing a small lot just marking me on a Saturday morning over on for Ambassador Steel, which was over on near the South High School. And Dale Hogan pulled in there and he said, how's it going? I said, not going very well. Mark's running over shovels and getting concrete, sealer up on the concrete and blah, blah, blah. I was complaining big time about Mark, how he's not doing the job right. Boy, he looked me in the eye and he said one thing. He said, did it ever occur to you that Mark can get the job done the same as you? Only not the same way, but he can get the job done like it's supposed to be done, but not your way, his way. And I can still remember taking 2 steps back physically. It was like he punched me. It was like the energy, and he wasn't mean about it, but it was like what I heard was it moved me 2 or 3 steps back. I just stood there.
With download.
It was a download, and I just stood there like that.
Yeah.
And so from that day on, the very next morning, we did a driveway. I said, Mark, I'm going up here at this end. You can start at that end if you want. And he said, okay. And so, because I wanted to just be by myself and get my part done and let him be by himself. And the other thing I did was start complimenting him, not falsely, but if a job was really super, and it wasn't in a place where it would be you're just making it up, I'd say, Mark, that's beautiful.
That's important.
Beautiful job on that.
Yeah.
And you know what? The tools quit getting broken. We started getting along better. I remember one time we were in this old beat-up pickup truck that I first started with, and it might have been the next truck, I don't know, but we were on this out of gravel road, and he said something, and I started laughing, and I had to turn the key off. We pulled over to the side by the ditch. We were laughing for 5 minutes straight with tears. It was amazing.
No, it is.
Yeah.
So one more moment that I remember, so we both do a lot of, health. We're focused on our health awareness, a lot of mindfulness, staying grounded. So I know once me and Mark got a little closer and he kind of understood more of the space I was in and kind of how I approach life, he knew that we have a lot in common. So then he introduced us, and then you invited me to come to your office and participate in a big group meditation. So it was like a Zoom call we were on for like an hour. There's probably over 100 people on the call. I forget the guy who led it, but it was just like an hour of just meditation and breath work. And I remember in that time, you were at your desk sitting. I was laying on the ground behind you, and I remember about halfway through, you just kind of burst into tears. So I'm curious if you remember that, and I'm curious what was that moment to you, and maybe where did those tears come from, if you remember.
I don't remember, but I do remember that my brother, the one that got burned, became a priest, and then he quit the priesthood.
Mm-hmm.
And after he quit the priesthood, because he was an alcoholic, and he knew he wasn't doing the things that a priest should be doing, he quit the priesthood, and the bishop told him he couldn't quit because they needed priests too bad, and he said, I'm quitting anyway. Mm-hmm. So he took off, and he went to Australia, and he started a healing center, the emotional healing center. And after I got divorced, I thought, man, I messed up big time. And I went to Hawaii and worked in a health center for 1 month, and the lady all she was interested in is getting people's money. I could tell that right off the bat. Mm-hmm. And so I stayed there 30 days, and I was out of there. And so I called him, and by then he was in Malaysia, but he had been in Australia for a number of years. And I told him what was going on. He said, well, why don't you come over here? Why don't you come on over here and help me out, work with me? I said, okay, I'll be there. And I can still remember going over, and so I'd go to his place every year.
In Malaysia?
In Malaysia. And we'd do rebirthing. We'd do beating on newspapers and I forget, Gestalt. I think they call it Gestalt. Work with child-parent relationships. And I'd cry a lot then and I'd get really, really angry. Mm-hmm. And then one day I finally asked him, I said, Prema, he took the name of Prema. His name was Patrick, but he changed his name to Prema. I said, when do you reach a point when you don't have to beat newspapers? We've been beating newspapers for a long time. When do we reach? He said, I've been thinking about that same thing. And I said, well, what's the point? Do I have to beat a newspaper every time I get angry? And he said, no. He said, that's not the point. We have to get over that. So I feel like I was instrumental in speeding up the process of feel the anger coming up. If you feel the anger coming up, you just realize it's an emotion. It's not you. You're carrying an emotion that you haven't gotten over or rid of. And so that was real helpful too. But
what do those so that group, that meditation group, how is that a part of your life? Like, how does that help your life? How does that enhance your life, just with the meditation and the breath work that you do?
Yeah.
How does that affect your life on a daily? Like, what's that done for you just once you understood the importance of meditation and breath work?
It stays you in that space. I mean,
do you have that space? Do you call that space anything? I know it's been spoken on to be like the gap.
Yeah, it's a lot of times I come out of the gap, but I catch it, and especially if I'm sometimes when I'm behind the wheel, either comes up.
Drivers.
I react to the other drivers.
I've realized throughout the years that your reaction while driving can tell you a lot about yourself.
Yeah. And especially with new drivers in Kokomo that weren't here 5 years ago. Some of them were up Markland, and I live on Markland Avenue, and some of them fly, and so I like to race them once in a while. Ben, I don't really do it out of anger, but I got this old beat-up Nissan, and I usually win. And it's still a need of having to win something. And so I'm not there yet, really.
Yeah.
I'm not at a total, everything's cool. It comes and goes, but I'm aware of it.
Would you have any suggestions of people that are seeking more awareness of that and how they can kind of stay more composed and poised in those moments?
I think yoga and the breathing, deep breathing, even breathing to the point where you can't hold your breath anymore, hold it 5 more seconds. You're not going to die. You're going to start breathing if you pass out, and getting into breath work and physical, maybe trampoline, treadmill. If it's wintertime, treadmill. Doing a lot of bicycle riding, physical. Helps me.
How was the difference between, like, you know, you had your upbringing and childhood and kind of your family history, where you come from, and then you find yourself abroad in a place like Malaysia, and you're, you know, on a spiritual journey from there. You know, how did that play a part in your spiritual journey, being abroad and being in a place like Malaysia?
That played a big part, because I know I called Mark one time. Mark reminds me of it every once in a while. He said, I called him one time, and I said, guess where I'm at? And he said, well, I have no clue. I know you're not here. And I said, I'm walking along the beach on the South China Sea, along the beach in the South China Sea. So he quotes out every once in a while. And just being, it felt, when I was doing those kind of things, it felt like I had no chains and no bondage.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I'm sure some part of my family thought, well, he's deserting us and who knows, but I wasn't even thinking of what they were thinking. I was just had to do that for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's taught me a lot. Also, I always like to talk. I'm a talker.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I'm not introverted. I did the about face. And so now I have to struggle sometimes to listen to others and shut my mouth and listen. And that's been what I'm working on still. Yeah.
Well, I just want to kind of maybe open it up to you. Anything that you want to share just to people who may see this, the younger generations, older generations, my age, my peers, elderly folks, you know, just something you want to share to kind of end the interview.
One thing is there's a lot of athletics going on nowadays. Baseball, football, and even
basketball. Don't forget the greatest sport ever.
Basketball. And but also when a young kid becomes good at everything or good at a lot, they can sometimes think that they're indestructible. I think they think that. So, well, I'm reminding some of them, if I feel they're open to it, I'll say, you're a star now. You're doing really well at baseball or whatever you're playing.
Mm-hmm.
But when you reach an age where you're not doing it anymore, then who are you?
Mm-hmm.
Right now, you're a professional or a pro, you know, a little pro, playing this or playing that. But then as time goes on, then who are you?
Mm-hmm.
And it may sound a bit brash or judgmental, but I'm thinking that gives them something to think about. Some of them may take it in, some of them may not.
Yep.
But
what about one piece of general advice? Just, you mentioned before this interview how obviously you're one of our editors. You've lived a full life, still here, still working, still being a productive member of your family and society. What about like one piece of general advice just upon living all these years and living the life that you live? What's one thing that you would pass on to someone?
Well, one thing is physically, I see a lot of people jogging and doing different lifting weights, barbells and stuff like that. But they're eating cheeseburgers and French fries, and they weigh the same. They can't understand. They're trying to lose weight by running, and then they get these knee joints out of place and stuff. So if I feel close enough to them, I tell them, it's not what you're doing physically. It is, that helps, but it's not what you're doing physically. It's what's going in here, in your mouth. And some of them will say, oh, I know. But it's true. I mean, it's like you can't put diesel fuel in your vehicle unless it's diesel engine. It's not going to run. And if you put all that garbage in your body, it's not going to function very well in time.
What about the importance of things that you watch or you hear?
Embrace yourself and positive energy and people with positive energy. if you feel, and if you're open to it, you can feel that you're in negative energy, and it can do nothing but pull you down. And then you run into the problem if you don't know how to say no, it'll just won't be a fun life to live. You won't feel comfortable at all. So associate with people that are positive and helpful, and it'll help a lot. And I can remember when Mark hadn't had a drink of alcohol for, I don't know how long it is now, 30 or some years.
Mm-hmm.
And he quit after going to jail 3 times. But I remember when he came home after, a treatment or after jail or something, a couple of them wanted him to go out and go meeting, and they were going to have a beer, go to this bar. And I advised him, I said, Mark, I don't think that'd be good. I said, you have your own life to live. You can do it if you want, but I don't think it'll help you to do that or be fun to do that. And about a week later, he said, you're right. He said, I had a Coke, and he said, they were trying to get me to drink beer. I said, that's what happens. I said, they want you to be in their same group. And if you don't feel good about that group, then you may have to space yourself out of it.
100%.
Yeah, 100%.
I think that'll wrap up our convo. Appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
Big hug to Finn.
Thank you. Yeah. And I know I'm broken.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Yeah. Well, thanks for breaking me in on a podcast.
First time.